G'day ladies and gentlemen, Pill16 here. Welcome to episode 2 of Those Little Things That Really Shit Me Off. Last episode we spoke about 5-man platoons. We had a fair few people come through watch the video, and actually some really productive comments in the chat. So I really appreciate that, guys. Thank you for keeping the chat clean and giving me your perspective on whether you were for or against 5-man platoon changes. During this video, I would like to speak about +1, -1 matchmaking. Or more specifically, the lack of +1, -1 matchmaking in our game currently. Now this topic is cause of lots of debate amongst the community. There are some who are really for it, some who really don't mind either way, and some people who really don't want it. I am of the position that +1, -1 matchmaking would be a definite benefit for the game, as there are so many players that really do struggle to establish themselves when starting this game new or even starting a new account. And I don't want to draw specific attention. And I don't really want to draw specific attention to new players only. This problem really does extend itself out to long-term players as well. I myself really don't enjoy being 2+. I mean, who could believe it, right? I mean, do you really enjoy going out on a battlefield in a tier 8 that's brand new out of the box and seeing tier 10 all the way down to the 13th player, and then you and one other mate, or even, two other mates, are the only tier 8s in a tier 10 battle? Tell me, how many times have you seen that happen? Because I see it almost every single time I play. I will see a tier 8 tank, either 1, 2 or 3 of them as the only tier 8 tanks on their team, or even worse, in the battle. I have seen platoons of 2 guys being the only tier 8s in a tier 10 battle, and I know you guys have seen it as well. It happens, it really does. And you can't tell me that those 2 guys, or 1 guy even, are having a good time. There is no enjoyment to be had by getting absolutely smashed by tier 10 tanks. And yes, there are the odd occasions where you can sit there and do a decent amount of damage, but those aren't the every player. They're the really established players, the people who know how to position and know map awareness, know how to play their tanks, have this crew perks to really make their tank shine in that position, and can get away with it by being 2+. But there's no longevity, and I've said this before in the last game. In the last video we did, I said that there's no longevity in that, and that's exactly my point with this. That without +1, -1 matchmaking, the longevity of the game is in question, purely because no new players are going to stay around to get clapped by 2+ matches. Nobody wants that. That is not fun. Yes, there will be the odd occasion where you will win that game, but you won't do much damage. And if you're going to refer to this as a player who's been playing for this game for 6 or 7 years, that is not really a fair opinion to have, because you are not a new player. And you are not a weekend player if you're only playing 2 or 3 days, example. So these people who are coming into the game, who we need to keep the game alive, are seeing a small amount of playtime, are then getting to this tier thinking, hey, this is how the game works, because +1, -1 is in effect all the way up to tier 5 now, not including tier 5. So you start this game, you grow in the first 2 tiers, and you're like, hey, this isn't so bad. It's hard, but it's not so hard. And then you hit tier 5, and slap, you're getting that 2+ matchmaking, and the real pain begins. Because this is where you really have to start grinding the game. Tier 5 isn't really where the game fully comes into its play. Like, you don't really get a sense of armor, you don't really get a sense of view range and mobility. I mean, that sort of starts coming in at tier 7 in my opinion, where you get to see tanks like the T-29, you get some of the really good light tanks coming in at tier 7 as well, like the Spar Panzer as well. So you are actually seeing some nice tanks coming in at that tier, where you can actually really start to get a benefit or an advantage on the playing field. But tier 5 doesn't have that. So it still sees 2+, because that makes sense, right? Now what really shits me off about this is that they have done countless tests on +1, -1. Countless. They have done tests where your preferential matchmaking tanks, and for those who don't know what preferential matchmaking tanks are, they are your tanks who already see +1, -1 matchmaking. Oh, sorry, +1 matchmaking -2 matchmaking only at this point. So they've done tests where these tanks see +0 -2. So they're like, oh, they're god tanks in this playtest, but they've tested that with that in effect and without that in effect, and they've tested it so many times that they surely should have the answers that they're looking for, and they should be able to implement it or make the changes needed to implement it, or at least give us reasons, legitimate reasons, why they're not implementing these +1 -1 matchmaker. Now this brings me to my next point. +1 -1 matchmaking and its use to supplement less than ideal content. Now those of you who have spoken to me previously about this know what I'm talking about. So previously, I personally have experienced an instance, or many instances, where +1 -1 matchmaking has been, in my opinion, used to supplement shitty content, and that is felt around the community. That is not just something that I am the only one who has thought of and felt. I've asked many people about how they feel about this, and a lot of people are just like, "Ah, yeah, that's so a thing." You'll see, +1 -1 matchmaking weekend coming up with the release of this, and people are like, well, yeah, of course they're releasing +1 -1 matchmaking tests to boost the numbers on the release of this content, because really people aren't wanting this content, but they want the +1 -1 matchmaking. So to get the results, and once again, this is just an opinion. To get the results for the new content, you see the +1 -1 matchmaking come out, players come swarming in because they love +1 -1 matchmaking, and you see the good stats for this new content, even though the content is lackluster, in my opinion. Now, I went so far as to actually ask this question in a community contributors meeting with Minto. Those of you who remember Minto, he was our community manager for a while, absolute legend, and would often hold community contributor meetings where we would all actually talk in an open forum, get subjects off our chest, and generally just sort of decompress about how we felt about things, and how we felt the game was progressing or not progressing in the direction it was going, which was an absolutely epic thing to do, because we were his fingers in the pie for the community, and he knew it. So during one of these meetings, I got the question asked by Minto, any questions from the floor? So I said, this is my opportunity to take a blunt approach, because I'm Australian. That's what we do. We're very blunt people, passionate but blunt. And I said to him, I have a question in regards to +1 -1, and he and a few other people sort of went, here we go. And I said straight up, why is +1 -1 matchmaking being used to fluffer shitty content? In those exact words. Several people laughed because I guess it was taken as a joke, but it was dead set serious. And I think it was Goliath Games actually said at the time, is like, yeah, exactly, what Pill says, why is that a thing? And he's like, well, that's not being done, that's not the case at all. We're unaware of any instances where we've used +1 -1 matchmaking to boost any content at all. And, be that as it may, and I take his word because he's a man of his word. I do respect Minto immensely. It doesn't surprise me that at his level that may not be actually well known. Once again, this is an opinion. So, I have your tinfoil hats, guys. I have the opinion that that is a thing, because they know this is their golden egg. +1 -1 matchmaking is so desired by most of the community. Now, as I said, there are some that don't desire it. It is so desired by most of the community that they know that they can boost things with it. It is an ace in the hole. So when you've got situations where they're like, oh, I don't really know how this is going to go, let's boost it with +1 -1, because it's a solid numbers boost every time. Now, yeah, back to what Minto said. He is unaware of that being a thing, and if it was, he'd be aware of it, but he wasn't. So the official comment from World of Tanks is that that's not a thing. And, as I said, this is just my opinion. It may not be a thing, but it feels pretty solid. When people like GoGo, and I say GoGo, it's Goliath Games, when GoGo goes to community contributor meetings, he doesn't really say anything. He's a man who listens, and he listens well, and if he's got a subject to talk about, he talks about it. And he didn't say much during the contributors meetings, but on that instance he's like, yeah, exactly, that is a thing. And that was really great to hear from him, because I always felt like the underdog in the community contributors program, being Australian. It was sort of like, oh yeah, you're just that crazy Australian guy. So when I brought up content issues, things were often like, oh, I don't really see that happening, and to get the backing on that one was really good. So I'm not the only person with this idea, and people right at the top, such as GoGo, generally feel that's a thing as well. Why the content that is coming out is needing boosting, and why it's at the expense of +1 -1. So recently it was spoken about on my stream, and once again referencing my past video, it was brought up by Blue Wolf on a World of Tanks console stream, spoken to T33 Kane, and on my own personal stream on Twitch with my chat and KB. So the common story between the both of them was that to have +1 -1 matchmaking be able to work, we would need 5 times the amount of community that we currently have. And I'm going to revert back to the previous statements, and I'm doing this again. If we want the community to grow, we need to provide them with a game that is appealing. And as it sits, it is laborious for a new player to come into this game. It is laborious. They have to work so hard to establish themselves. And I'm not saying it should be given on a silver platter. It should be grind. Everything's a grind. That's, this game is about grinding. The grind is one of the reasons why I play this game. Anyone who knows me knows that I play all the way up to tier 10. I get my tier 10, I'm like, ooh, shiny, and then I don't play it, because that's it, the grind's done, so I go and start a new grind. So it's not, the grinding is not the point. Mind you, that is a topic for another talk. My point is, the grind is too arduous for new players. And I don't want to get too hung up on new players, because my argument doesn't completely revolve around new players. For long-term players and mid-term players, this grind is brutal. Playing 2+ is brutal. It is not something you want to do. And every time I come into a match, when I'm 2+, I'm like, oh yay, 2+ matchmaking. Woohoo. Big surprise there. Because it is literally the downer on the evening. You can be playing absolute mastery games. You can have, you could just be on fire all night, and then you get that 2+ game, and you're like, alright, cool, well, I'm going to try my best to live as long as I can, and then some tier 10's going to steamroll me, because they, let's look at it from a tier 8 perspective, unupgraded against a tier 10. You don't really have to worry about a lot of their potential. Most tier 8s, when they're not upgraded, are completely useless. Look at the new Czech line. The Czech heavy line at tier 8, when it first comes out, is terrible. You can't do bugger all against the tier 10. You have to load solid premium before you can get any chance at doing damage on one. Unless they show you their rear, which very rarely happens. So we're looking at people who have been playing for, say, 7 or 8 years now, and are grinding a new line because the new line's out, and they're getting 2+ at tier 8. So they've got the commander, they've got the ability and the capacity to do it. They're still being outplayed because of the matchmaker. So it's not a case that's limited to only new players. It is still an appropriate thing to talk about with long-term players. So let's talk about the negative effects +1 -1 matchmaking will have on the game. So from World of Tanks' perspective, their feedback is +1 -1 matchmaking will cause longer wait times. My answer for that is nobody that cares about this game cares about the load time. It's not a thing you're going to care about, because quality games taking a little bit extra time are not an issue. Everyone I've spoken to has said, I don't care if I have to wait 5 minutes for a good match. I'm going to wait 5 minutes for a good match. It's a throwaway line. It's one of those lines that they say, like, well, this is being a thing that we're seeing statistically. Well, unfortunately, this isn't a statistical issue. It's an input issue. People who are playing the game the most and people who are coming into the game are two separate categories. People who play the game the most want to play good games. They want to have good matchmaking. They want to be able to have long matches, and those matches that come down to 1 to 2 tanks at the end of the game, each side. They don't want to launch into a match within 20 seconds to see terrible matchmaking, to see unbalanced teams, to see all of the stuff that we're being seen lately, and a match is finished in under 2 minutes. Because it is absolutely happening, where you're getting matches that are finishing, I don't know how quick I've seen them, but there's been some rippers. You roll into the game and literally you get capped out because everyone just jumps on the flag and caps out. Or your team physically can't do damage. I've seen 12 people on a team do 0 damage. I don't know what that's about or even how it's possible, but the other team has absolutely no problem steamrolling the other team. And that's a whitewash, right? People don't want those games. Those games aren't fun. Even for the people on the winning side, there is very little XP to be had if you're one of the 12 people who gets 2 shots in before the team wins. If you're on your first game of the night or in that tank, you lose a 2 times XP booster on a tank that got 2 shots in. Whoop-de-doo, Basil, what a waste of an XP boost. So that's not something that's productive for either side. We don't want those matches. If we have to wait an extra 10 to 15 minutes, 15 minutes, lol. No, if we have to wait an extra 3 minutes, 4 minutes for a match, that's fine, We don't care for that. It's fine. I'm happy to wait 5 to 6 minutes, 7 minutes for a match. Mate, if I have to wait 7 minutes, 8 minutes, as long as it's going to be a good match, I sit there and I talk to my friends. Maybe after 5 minutes we're like, this is taking a while. But matches used to take that long. I don't know if you guys remember, but I was constantly getting up to 3.5, 4 minutes before I saw a match. I never complained to Wargaming about that. I didn't bring it up in their streams. I didn't write them a letter. And I'm going to bet that you guys didn't either, because it's not an issue. And somewhere along the line, Wargaming have decided that this is an issue for players. We don't want to wait to play games. Now, where I think this is coming from is new players. More specifically, young players. Very young players. The problem here is these players are your speed players. They come in, they drop their money, they play a few games, and then they bugger off because the appeal's gone, right? They burn their currency at Christmas, or they burn their currency at their birthday. They play this game because, hey, their friends play it and they don't like it. My personal experience is my little brother. I spent $100 on him at Christmas for this game to buy him all the loot boxes and top secret cards, and he played to tier 5 and went, this is too hard, and then stopped playing. So perfect example. And I've heard it as time and time again. New players coming in, playing to a certain point, dropping heaps of cash during that process. They've got the problems with the game are it's too hard and it's not fast enough. And that's it. This is where I think they've shaped their dynamic from. These players, I don't know whether it's because they spend the most money short term or what it is, but they need to get this gamer profile out of their head. This is not the community that stays and plays the game. These are not the players who we really want playing the game. Because, and I'm using a generalization here, I don't mean to do that, but these players are the ones who, carry on in games. They push people in the open, they drive around, they shoot their own players, they YOLO when they're playing their classes. They don't care. There's no care for the dynamic of the game. There's no care for anything that goes on in it. They don't care for their own team, the enemy team. They just want to get in, have a battle, shoot some people, have a giggle, get out, do another one. You know what? More power to them. If they want to do that, that's fine. But we shouldn't shape the way the game works or runs or upgrades and advances because of these players. We should be talking to our community, listening to the chat, and hearing what the community's saying and picking up what they're putting down and developing the game in that direction. And the community has been screaming for years that +1, -1 matchmaking is the way forward for this game. Why have we not seen it? The excuse that we need 5 times the current player base to progress this, I feel is invalid. If we hold or change the way we're developing this game, be based around the things that we can't do, then we're going to get stuck. And that's where we're headed. So they're saying we need 5 times the community that we've currently got. How bad is the community? That's the first thing I thought when I heard that. How bad is the community dwindling for them to say they need 5 times the amount of community they've currently got? I thought there were thousands of us. I mean, maybe that's not enough. But when I'm playing, I'm seeing 10,000 people in the server. I mean, that's not so bad. You know, I used to see 13,000, maybe 20,000 at peak when I was playing during my times. But to say you need 5 times, that's a lot of people. And to say that we can't implement something that's going to boost player numbers because of the lack of player numbers is a conundrum. And I think that is absolutely going to hasten the downfall of a really, really awesome game. And that's not something I want. I've put in a lot of time to this game and I love it. I do love this game. It's such a good game. It could be so much better. And I think that with the help of the community and feedback and listening to what we've got to say, that we could really shape this into an amazing thing still. There is still time to turn this around and make it awesome again. And a lot of my friends still think the same thing, that we can turn around some of the mistakes and we can make it better. Look at 6.0 as an example. All the mistakes that were in that and all the unfinished upgrades, that's been slowly turned back into the game that we remember. You know, there are people who come back like, oh, lots changed, but it's really sort of the same as it was. We've managed to turn them around slowly in redoing things, but they've not reverted by any measure, but they've just made it different, but still quite the same. So let me know what you guys think. I think this is going to be a really interesting comment section on this video. Don't hold back. If you are personally offended or you don't agree with me or anything, just let me know. Keep it civil as always. I'm really interested to know what your thoughts are, and once again how you like this video, because you know, this isn't my regular thing and I'm really just speaking my feelings, and I hope you guys feel the same. Until next time guys, thank you very much for watching. I appreciate your time. Let me know how you feel. Take care guys. Bye bye.